You're looking great tonight. Thank you to my helper, my daughter. Thank you. Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you.
They love you. Good job. How are y'all doing tonight? Are we live?
We're live right now. Yeah,
Hi.
we are on the air.
Good morning to you. Good morning to you. It's morning somewhere in the world.
That's true. I think.
How are you
Go ahead.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Finished your books. That was cool.
Oh, did you?
Really liked the ending. Well, yeah. I mean, the epilogue. I was like, should I just bust through the epilogue? Which it's kind of like a glossary, which is cool.
Yeah, it's a glossary disguised as part of the story.
Yeah.
Just
I,
snuck it in there. Are
that's
we finishing up tonight? Are we finishing up?
I think so. I mean, looking at the epilogue, I don't really know. Yeah, I think we could probably cover it tonight. Since I know Sarah, you already read it all the way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if Bit's not in yet, but I don't know if you read the epilogue or not.
Oh, the epilogue's not long. It actually is an addendum. And so I like it because I wrote it as part of my notes and I was like, hey, wait a minute, this is actually really cool. It should go in the book. And so I was like, hurrah. So I did that. So let's see, got to find out where we started. It's all right. Just wait. If I have to look it up, I will. So
It starts off with Rose like waking up from being attacked by the helpers. So she wakes up and she's like, "What's going on?" And then she realizes her ring's gone. That's basically where part 4 starts.
it's like losing your cell phone. It's like losing your cell phone. Not exactly that. You wake up and you can't find your cell phone. You hear it beeping, but you don't know where it is.
Yeah.
And that feeling that you get, that's what she has.
I got the vibe that she like, because she's like, I can't live without it. Like I'll die or whatever. I feel like she was maybe brainwashed to believe that because it sounds like the ring allowed the church fathers to hear her thoughts. So basically gave them just an extra layer of control over them to have that ring out so they could hear what they were thinking to make sure that they weren't, having rebellious.
And this is totally not real in real life. It's totally not real that Amazon listens to you. And then if you holler out like foot fungus, then you'll get like all these foot fungus ads,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not based on that at all. It's totally not real.
Yeah, Alexa
Well,
and Siri need to learn manners.
With at one point, when she needs her music,
Yes.
her playlist.
Yes, she
She's
does.
lost without it. It's like, oh, I have a 16-year-old who's always got her earbuds in because she's
Yes.
got music all the time. She doesn't know what to do with the silence when it's not there.
It's overwhelming. Yeah. I am really connected to right now, which is, I mean, it's I guess it's part of our life but I grew up without it, so I kind of know what the world is like. There's Ben. Hi there. You've still got daylight where you are. I'm nighttime over here. Congratulations on your sunshine. But yeah, so the ring, a lot of, and of course, it's actually more connected as the further you go in the story, realize how connected it really is. But it's the ring itself is actually a character in the story. I think we kind of have touched on this just a little bit, much like River's feet in Firefly. The ring is actually a character, and as we go through the theory, start to get to meet the ring more and more. You get to see what actually the internal workings of it are, and how connected these people are to their devices, which of course we don't do that at all. And they're helpers, as they have the real helpers. Of course, you have the corrupted helpers, which are the software that is rogue and out of control, that locks down your device and attacks your neuro system. And then you have the ones that are actually their AI helpers and things much like what we have. And you haven't really gotten to that point yet in the story, but we get oh, I saw you. Yay. I don't know where I look under here. I've got a banner across my face on my end. But so good luck. If I look funny, just deal with it. And but so with the ring, for her to lose her ring is like losing, like I said, it's part of her. She says that's how she experiences the world.
Yeah.
It's not just through her eyes, but the always on 24/7 connectedness that she has with this device. And she has been, it is used as a surveillance tool. And of course, the Watcher is finding that out, that he's had one in the past. Obviously, he knows something about cold reboots and kind of how to force, a forced boot which I base a lot of the software on Linux, of course, because I said I used Linux for probably about 30 years off and on. Just as when I would start to hate on Windows because it would like eat all of my data and then force me to pay them again, I would immediately go in and like trash it and then go put Linux on again. So I based a lot of it on Linux commands that I knew, or how to do like a forced reboot on my own devices. And so when I did that, I wrote in part of what my experience was with, of course, with surveillance. Excuse me. But surveillance, we don't think of it as surveillance. We think of it as, software. We think of it as something trying to hook in. When I have my device trying to update without my permission, and I can't turn off the update and I can't make it stop, that experience is part of what came out with the helpers, of course, and the corrupted helpers. But her love of this device is real. For most of us, we live through our devices, and it's how we get along in life. And without them, it's very difficult for us to learn how to function again. And so Rose is in this very precarious place. She's never been without one. You have to excuse me just for I got a cough.
No worries.
It's part of what I do. You're in Texas. It's like it's allergy season, so
yeah. No, it's been bad here. I've been had to. This is the first year in my life I've had to take Zyrtec because I was getting hit bad with it.
Oh, dude, really?
Mm-hmm.
What are you allergic to?
I have no idea. I've never been allergic, and I had terrible sinus pressure. And I thought I was sick, and it just wasn't going away. And my wife's a PA. She's like, I think you have allergies. I was like, okay. So I tried Zyrtec, and it went away. So
good job.
Yeah.
Well, that actually, Sarah knows this because she's read further in the book. But you've also met the Watcher has an allergy as well. I wanted to address this. None of our heroes in our books ever have allergies. They're never just walking through the woods and just suffer. And yes, he has leaf molds. This is going to actually play pretty prominently in the book as we go forward, because he has a weakness. It's leaf mold. And he can't stand. It makes his eyes itch. He sneezes uncontrollably. It just makes him feel horrible. And I really wanted that for him, because if we have to suffer, why not my hero? I think that he just a life that we all have lived here at this point. So yeah, I wrote that in. But yeah, so he's sort of in that place right now where this is the quantum leap for him. I think as you've read this part, I'll let you go ahead and talk about this, but we get to see him in a different light. Before, he's been struggling. He's just a prisoner. He's been, fighting back the best he can, but we're living in this world without any communication, without anything else that we can tie us to someone else. And suddenly we have this device, and it's coveted. People have wanted this thing. People have fought to try to find ones that work. And we find out that people actually do have these, that they actually have been hiding this technology, this advantage from these common people, that they're not allowed to have the things evidently that the high and mighty have. And suddenly we have a ring.
Yeah, I really like. I mean, I guess we'll get into it a little later, but I really like the first time he uses it and like he communicates with Rose. It's a really like powerful scene, because it's like, what is it, like 19? How many days was it? It was like an insane amount of days, like 19,000 days, or something like that.
Yeah. Look at it, but it's way down there. I can't see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
It's like the first time he's spoken or even heard his, even though it's like a garbled, if that's a word, version of his own voice. It's still like his voice. So it's like the first time he's actually spoken to somebody. So yeah, it's a cool one. I just love. I mean, I know it's like dystopian, but I love the idea of like having like being able to see things like from a chip in my head, and I can like see maps and stuff. I don't know. That's so cool. Like I love that sci-fi technology.
They're not expecting a cyberpunk, element to it. Of course, it's actually in the genre description. We have, attempted to try to find how to describe this book. And so the cyberpunk element of it, because like I said, my involvement with, Linux, trying to hack computers, and in my work with my private investigative agency, that was my primary thing was that I would go in, I would actually back towards deconstruct websites. So we would go and we'd be looking at something to go back in, and we'd start with a URL. You start just not hacking. I would never hack. Going in backwards engineering a URL from hidden, like from home, from HTML, .html, whatever. And you keep putting the strings in until you find to a real. And a lot of times we would do that. He thinks I as good as I am. Now he's better than I in the respect that I can make up stuff and I can sit down and I can actually read about it. So I can kind of give him what he needs, but it always terrifies me the cyberpunk part wrong, because I know that people read it and always I not only got the math right, because that really terrifies me that I will get like a desk block, or that I will have the coding wrong and somebody's going to go, well, that's not real. And then I'll have to make it like I said, the lithium crystal, dude. You can use it. You knew what I was talking about, Sarah. You knew exactly what I was talking about. If they can make up the lithium crystals, I can make up spaghetti code and pretend like it works.
Yeah.
I think that I'm allowed to do that. So,
I mean, that's why hard sci-fi is the thing, right? Like, not everything has to be hard science.
I try to make it plausible. I don't want it to ruin it for someone, but at the same time, yes, this is a future world. So it's like I'm hopeful, not in near future, but it's future enough that they will have made up for my mistakes, and that's all I'm hopeful.
Nice. Yeah. So I guess to do a quick recap. So they wake up at the bait shop, or they don't wake up. Rose wakes up. And she panics, so she doesn't know where her ring's at because I keep doing that. The Watcher took it, and he's using it to communicate with her, and he's also able to access her own files inside the ring, and he sees like letters she's written. He sees videos of the church fathers, and when she goes to the bathroom, he watches another video that really pisses him off because it's pretty much implied like that it's basically a video of her being assaulted. At least that's what I took away from it. That's definitely
we fade to black. I always try to fade to black.
Yeah, but it was pretty obvious because like you could he saw the reflection in her eyes and what. Anyway, so yeah, he gets super pissed off, and he basically kind of gets this idea that he wants to protect her, even if like she kind of protect her from herself because she kind of wants to get back to these people, and he's like, no, that's not happening.
She's on a no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know when wrapped around the axle so bad that they don't realize that this is really not a good corporation for them to work for. It's like,
yeah. And I like that because like later on in this part of the book, like you kind of tie in her kind of like blind dependency on these abusive people to his mother's relationship with his biological father, and he's like looking at himself, kind of like how his stepfather just kind of let his mother go back. He's like, oh, it's her choice. And by not stepping in and stopping his mom, his stepfather allowed her to go back to his biological father, who ended up killing her. And so now he's like, I'm not going to make the same mistake as my stepfather, and I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that she doesn't go back to these guys. Which I really liked how you kind of played with those two. You took that history and then wove it into different characters and part of the plot going forward, and like how it influences decisions.
Well, in my work I've worked as a women's recovery group leader for the last 15 years, and I'm not doing it right now because my health is making it a little harder for me. But it's a tough road to hoe if anybody's ever had experience with AA or anything like that. And we've talked about it briefly before. That the Watcher's addiction is based in part on my ministry at church, and what I know about that, and my own family history of 100 glorious years of addiction and alcoholism and recovery. And so I get a chance to. I'm very proud of my family for overcoming, and for when somebody else is going through that, you get up on the horse and ride again. That's the way it is. And so with that work that I've done, I realized that so much of our lives are intertwined that way. And a lot of the decisions we make are based on our own experience, how we've interacted. And so much of what the Watcher does is not just based on him being arrogant or wanting to be, up with a patriarchy or anything like that. He literally has lived this. He knows that people can make terrible decisions. and they will go back to abusive relationships. And this is not a trope. This is real life.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell that I'm going to testify right now that people go back to a relationship because they feel like they have to be there, that they have to try to help this person. And there comes a point where you have to decide for yourself that you know that this is a bad place to be. And sometimes we don't make that, and that's for men and women both. Sometimes we don't make that decision. We make a different decision. We decide we want to stay, that we want to try one more time, and that's not being an enabler. And I really hate the term enabler. I feel like it's victim blames.
Mm-hmm.
But people make bad choices sometimes. There's no way to know that person, that's the last time that they're going to be normal and they're going to assault you and it's going to be the end. We expect our people to know everything. We expect them to have 2020 foresight, and it's not possible. You don't always know. Abuser, it just becomes the real abuser and just becomes open. And so, having experienced some of that in my own life and having experienced women in groups, this is based so much on reality. Rose really does believe that this is the right way to do things, that she has been taught that this is the perfect way to be. She has a mission to accomplish, and if she accomplishes that mission, then everything will be okay. Look what you made me do will no longer happen because everything's going to be cool. And she'll have fixed the problem that caused all the violence and the overbearing, activity to happen. She believes in her heart that she is going to be able to do this. And that's based on real life. There's no shame in saying that sometimes we choose the wrong things. And sometimes people who have been through that decide they don't want someone else to choose the wrong thing. I don't know if y'all have ever been through that, but when you see a friend that's going back to someone that they really shouldn't go to, that has decided that, you know what, I have to go. I have to be. And you watch them walk away and you think, is this the last time I'm going to see this person? It's a tough place to be. Sometimes it can say some really tough things to people. And I think all of us, if we've ever been through that, we've had a fantasy about telling dad not to go back that last time, or telling your mom that you don't have to be with him. You can leave now. It's okay,
Yeah.
And I think that fantasy humanizes the watcher for me, because when I was writing the story, his story just sort of comes out. I didn't just sit down and plot his life out and said, I want him to be these things. He just started talking and he told me his story and I wrote it. That's that first time that you see him talk to Rose, when he reveals that about it, is the first time I see it. I discovered this with you, and he starts telling this story, and I'm like, well, that explains why you're acting like a jerk sometimes. It's like you just need to help. Maybe help.
Yeah, it's a great I don't know, balance between these two characters. There's so much. I have like a whole page of notes here. I don't know if I'm gonna get through them all tonight, but I guess we will. I mean, it's our last time together, so we probably should do that.
I talked to him. I already know this.
Oh, no worries.
Hey, stop. Sarah, just put your hand out like this. Just.
I mean, for plot wise, I'll just skip. They leave the bait shop. They go through the wilderness, and then they come to the ranger station, which really is just an old church. Which, cool fact, this is a little bit of lore we get in the book. In the life before, it was like an illegal church because the globalists banned religion, or basically came up with their own newer religion that was like updated every week or something. And so these like old churches were like underground or like out in the country where no one really paid attention to them. So that's a cool little piece of lore that I thought was really cool. But anyway, now this old church is basically like a supply station / like a radio communication center for the Rangers, like a drop box kind of thing. So anyway, they go there. But along the way, they encounter an alligator and a giant bull, longhorn, Texas longhorn, I believe.
It's actually, that one was real. It used to live next door to me.
Was it like bigger though, because it's radiated?
Maybe a little.
I was picturing like a massive bull.
Yeah,
I mean, not that they're not already massive.
No, some of them are like 1,500 to 2,000 pounds, bro. They're huge.
Yeah.
They can be big. Some calls get even bigger. Longhorns, though, are they're.
Excuse me. I believe it was a.
Oh.
I believe it was a boy cow.
Boy cow.
Yes, a boy cow.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, there are no boy cows.
Boy cow. We hear that all the time out here. He's a boy cow.
That's very. I think that just kind of flavors her like her childlike demeanor, because like that's what my kid would say. That's a cow. It's a boy cow.
Well, I've actually
Well,
said,
there was a
go ahead.
I was gonna say there was a movie and told TV show called Back to the Barnyard.
Uh-huh.
Where all it's about a boy cow. I mean, it doesn't make a lick of sense, but he has to protect the girl cows. Um,
Yes.
he's got an udder and everything, and it's just. I assume this is just the Gary Larson influence. You gotta have the cows.
I love Gary Larson so much. I love you now because you said Gary Larson's name. Thank you.
Yeah, I like all the animals you pop in there because like there's quite a bit of like I guess you call them random encounters, right, for you TTRPG folks. But like in a game that can get kind of bogged down. Like I just want to get to the place I'm going. Enough of these random encounters. But I feel like each time we encounter they're not the same animal, like a different creature. It's usually brief, so we get the flavor and it kind of fleshes out the setting and gives us an idea of like this is a really dangerous, like the wildlands are wild and they're very dangerous, which I think kind of builds like when she's like, okay, I have to go by myself now. I think because you put all these encounters in there, that kind of like built the I don't know, the dread for the reader, or like in Rose's, in her shoes, the fact that she has to go out in this wilderness now that we know is literally just littered with dangerous creatures and organisms like the ooze, which sounds really cool. I can't wait to actually see that. Yeah, I think you do a good job of like putting that in there without making it feel like it bogs down the story and slows the pacing, because they're brief encounters, right? So you're like, boom, this alligator, I shoot it, we run from the bowl, and then it's on to the next thing.
Well, this is sort of like what really happens out here. If you don't watch what you're doing, you're going to end up with critters. And like I said, we just had hogs in the side pasture the other day. In fact, they came through, and it's like they can be in herds. We've seen a herd of 200 of these things. Like they're 500-pound animals just rumbling through your pasture, tearing up stuff, and you see them in the daytime, and you're like, that thing could kill me, and it will if you do it wrong. They will come at you. Oh, you don't want that. Same thing with the bulls. I had a bull. His name was Bully. Surprise. He was actually half Charolais, half Longhorn, and he didn't have horns at all. Absolutely beautiful animal. He was so gorgeous, and he would let me scratch his head, and I would play with him, and I would touch him, and he started pushing down fences, and he couldn't keep him in anywhere. I had my girls with him, and my husband said, and now it's time to move him on, because he's 4 years old and he's fixing to become absolutely terrifying and unmanageable. And so he needed a bigger herd to keep him busy. So we did sell him as a bull, and he did get another set of girls, but they are very dangerous animals. And we don't realize how many farmers have been hurt or maimed because they're out working with their bulls. And if you know what you're doing, you can do it right. But those encounters are actually based on things that I've had. Now, the gator I have not had yet. So let me say that up front. I have not confronted the gator, but I heard that gator. He's on the back side of my property, because I had a calf missing one time, and I didn't know it was. But I was like, I don't know what happened to this thing. And then I started thinking about it, and I remembered there was like 2 nights before that I heard something going, drag, drag, and then it would stop, drag, drag, and then splash. And this is like, and it just blub, blub. And I heard a blub, blub, blub. And I'm like, what is that? And later on, I'm watching a thing about alligators. And they showed like an alligator dragging like a canoe or something like that into the water. And I'm like, wow, that sounds just like my back pond. And I think I'm going to stay away from there unless I have somebody with me, because, yeah, they can get big and mean, and they will drag you too. I don't want to mess with a gator. I'm not going to do that.
If you're trying to convince people not to move to Texas, I would tell this story as often as you could.
Or Florida.
Florida.
Florida's Florida's wild, man. Florida's so crazy. I love Florida. It's great. It's like Gator City.
Hey, we got Blaine Pardo in the chat. It says great book and author.
Blaine.
Oh, hey, Blaine.
Oh my gosh, it's a celebrity sighting. Blaine, I love. What a great dude. And y'all need to read Land and Sea.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of Land and Sea. I've read the short story in the Anvil issue number 4. Got the graphic novel ordered. Yeah, I'm there. I'm working on a lore video right now, actually.
Are you really?
Yeah.
The Blaine, you came at the right time, so we can talk you up.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big.
Celebrities.
He came on. He was the first writer I had on my stream.
Really?
Great dude.
Blaine is an absolute powerhouse for any indie author. He's not just one of those guys that sits in the background and talks his own book and then goes his own way. He has been there for so many of us. He shows up in our feed. He shows up in the chats. He has been there for me personally. It was one of my first big breaks that I had when he gave me my review. He gave me a 5-star review for Watcher of the Damned, and he put it on Amazon. By golly, thank you, Blaine. You didn't decide, you put that star on there. It was a game changer for me. It literally changed my life. And I want to tell you that, Blaine, because I know that you have so much that you've done for so many people, and you're out there fighting the good fight, not just for the book people, but also for things that really matter in America, the culture and the people, and the fight that we have to try to take back our own creative forces that we have, lost so much of it to corporate entities. And Blaine is fighting to take this back, and he has pushed back against the cancel culture and won. And I'm saying that honestly, he has won because he has made a name for himself outside of Battletech, outside of everything else. And when you have people like that in the space, I just want to tell you thank you, because that made all the difference for me, Blaine, and I will never forget. I love you.
I wish I had an applause track. That was awesome.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah. Also, I just saw that Splashdown Book 1 to Land and Sea, the Audible is on sale for like $8 right now on Amazon. So go check that out. Yeah, I have a Land and Sea sweatshirt, like I have the Splashdown hoodie. I'm a Patreon member for the tabletop game that's coming out. Yeah, I'm in, dude. He also wrote. I'm gonna get sidetracked on Blaine Pardo, but he wrote a standalone in the Galaxy's Edge series called The Lost Legion. It's like the mech book of Galaxy's Edge. So good.
Oh, well, he's coming out with another one with Declan Finn. And I know. Yeah, is that the new one that he's got?
Yeah, that's gonna be book 10 in Land and Sea.
Yeah. So I'm waiting on that because like Declan's like like my little the most. He's like the cutest little dude you ever saw. Declan, if you don't listen to me right now, he's just adorable. He's got this little fedora. He's got this little outfit. Him and his wife look like they're matched perfectly. They're adorable. And so Declan, him working with Blaine Pardo is like a dream team for me. So I'm excited. And Blaine, I love you so much. And I want you to help me with my TTRPG. When I finally get this done, I'm in the home stretch for the whole series. I'm going to 12 books, like you and I talked about, like doing the whole full series. And Blaine was one of the first ones that said, yes, go for it. Do the whole series. Do the big long picture. And so we're looking at making it into a TTRPG at the end of the whole series to make an open world one for Watcher of the Damned. And that's going to actually be something that he encouraged me to do that. And so if you have any suggestions, Blaine, let me know, because I'm lost. I'm only good for like one pro. I know how to play. I am not great at all the stats and the goodies and everything. So that would be something. If you have a couple extra minutes, I love you. Just help me. But yes, he's awesome, and he's a huge influence out here. So thank you, Blaine.
Oh yeah. All right, man. Well. Yeah, I guess we did a pretty good rundown of the plot. Has anybody got anything about this section, part 4, that stuck out to them that they want to talk about? I have a whole bunch, so I'll let others go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna shut up my head.
Sarah?
I like the fact. I know that some people didn't like the fact that the second part of the book or these last 2 sections was just them interacting. I really liked it, and I thought it worked really well because you were able to, like with the animal encounters, take a small thing but make it interesting and significant in a way. And so as their relationship, there's this that the sort of the flip where it goes from him being in control to him being totally used and vulnerable. It worked really well, I think, and it definitely. I mean, that's why I went right on into book 2, because it's like, okay, I got to find out what happened next. That was pretty big.
Yeah, that was a good ending to make you want to pick up the next one.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it actually used to be the same. Actually, book 1 and 2 were all one book. It was all written together. And at the time, my editor was like, "This is going to be too long for your
Yeah.
first. They're going to freak out on you." And I was like, "Okay." And I love Evie White and Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little, and of course in that cliffhanger ending, which I thought it was, I thought, if I die right here, it's okay. They'll know that somebody's coming, but I felt like that was an okay place. Actually, I wanted it to end there, and when I wrote it in, and I was like, you know what, this actually works as a novel. We're going to let it end right there. And yeah, some people usually when they're going like, well, I don't want it to end, at that point, I'm like, just read into the next book, just go for it, because it's all the same book anyway. It's all the same series. So
yeah, so it has that feel of the old like an old serial,
yeah.
where you gotta keep going.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
What's up, Blake?
I'm done.
I was going to say, because it's all of this, we're gonna write 3 books, 4 books, 5 books, 10 books series. And I've read a few of these into a few, and when I'm going first book, second book, third book, like these are all the same. You know what I mean? There's like they're kind of flat. The ones that I've read anyway, and I've read successful ones, so it kind of, in some sense, I'm puzzled by it. But I thought what you had going really well here was that this felt like a complete story. Nice arc on everything. So you want to read the next. You don't feel gypped off, but you want to read the next one, and it's not going to be the same because the dynamic changes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be the same, only more so. There's going to be different. I know I can just intuit that there's going to be different environments and different challenges, and it's going to affect the characters differently, as opposed to, well, I've leveled up, which. I get it. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a little bit, it's a little lazy maybe. If your characters aren't struggling beyond, I got to get to the next level, then I don't know what you're doing, right? So I really liked, the ending was great because it's almost like their relationship. At the end, it is this kind of, and then at the end they're almost at a parody, right? And it's like, even though the Watcher's on the back heel, on the back foot, that like psychically, spiritually, they kind of realize that they're each other's match. So it's I really did like that. I thought that was I can't imagine anyone advising it. Someone giving literary advice, going, you should do that. But that also is why I liked it, because it was its own thing. Sui generis, and I didn't feel like. Like I say, I didn't feel ripped off. Like you're just like, you got to read the next book or you won't. On the other hand, I want to read the next book. That's a tough balance.
Well, I think with this book, I said I wrote the ending. I didn't plan these. I really literally. So I see the beginning of the series and I see the end of the series, and I see the islands in the middle. But as I'm writing it, and as this encounter starts to take place, and I realize what she's doing, and writing it, I sat down and wrote it all in one take. And so I let the relationship happen as it would happen to both of them. I didn't plan out and go, okay, I want this next thing to happen. I'm going to make her do this. I'm going to make him do this. I let them interact as they were going to interact. And when I got finished with the book, I realized that each book has its own arc. Like you said, it has its own internal arc. Even as we go through the entire series, we have what's called a series arc. So the first books, 1 through 6, basically 1 through 3 are its own arc. 4 through 6 are its next arc, but they all go together to form a complete structure. But each book, I tried to make sure that it had its own arc, that it had its own beginning and end. So that way we feel like I didn't want it to feel like you are just dragging through a long story where you're having to build up piece by piece. I've read stories like that, and they can be fascinating, but they can be hard to read sometimes, where you make yourself go, you know what, I need to find out what happens next. I've got to read this section. And I didn't want that to happen. So I let it happen as it would have happened between these two characters. They sort of make their own decisions. That interaction that they had was organic. I didn't want it to be forced from me that I would push this situation. I let this happen, and this is the way it went down for them. And the supernatural entities, as we go through the church, and the church itself is symbolic. because we have this false religion of the man-made religion, and as you see, it's very polyamorous in a lot of respects. It's patriarchal in some ways, but it largely reflects our own society, where people feel like good people have sex with everyone. And everybody should go out and do these things. And if you're a decent human, you will share yourself and your pictures and everything you have with somebody else. Because if you don't, then that means you're a prude and you're bad and you're denying other people their right to have happiness, whether they're sleeping with you or someone else. And having seen this play out in my own, church and things like that, where people, I have young women especially, but young men too, literally come in and saying, well, the only reason they're not showing themselves is because they're ugly or because there's something wrong. I had at one time had a doctor tell me, you should be out having fun and doing these things. Why aren't you? You're a teenager. And I was like, I'm religious. I don't do that, and when we live in a world like that, we don't want to actually take the bull by the horns here and talk about it and say we live in a society where people are treated as if they want to have love and have a monogamous relationship and a family, that somehow there's something wrong with them. But that the people that we admire, the people that we actually elevate as good people, are ones that take pictures and show everybody everything they have and share everything they have freely from start to finish, whether it's sex or anything else. It's they're constantly pushed to, hey, get this out there, do these things. Anybody who tells you not to do that's bad. And so she literally has this different morality. Like I said, she's the hooker with a heart of gold in some respects, almost. But she believes this is holiness, that if you are a good woman, you will do these things. If you're a good person, you will do these things. And so this is a subversion of the true faith. And then we come to this church out in the wilderness, and there's the remnants of what is truth and beauty and love. And neither the Watcher nor Rose are really on board with that, because the Watcher's had his own, from his own life experiences, feels like that was not a real thing. It was a bad thing. He feels like he abandoned that from his own childhood. And Rose, on the other hand, has this brainwashed belief that if she just does all the right things for everybody all the time, then she will be able to gain, her salvation and be, blessed by the church fathers. And so she has, gone wholeheartedly into this brainwashability. She's very religious, but she has some very heretical beliefs. And then the Watcher knows what is true, but he refuses to acknowledge it because of his own past and his own wounds. And so the church represents this entity of what is truth and beauty that still exists in spite of what we believe, in spite of how we embrace it. It's still there. It's just waiting for us. And the church becomes that entity and that place where there is a holiness and there is an act that takes place. And we'll talk about that later. But there is a sacredness to it that cannot be denied.
You didn't plan that out? That just came to you? You just
Literally, I wrote it. It happened. Holy cow! And y'all don't understand. When I sit down and write this book, I said I have the big scenes that I know are out there that are waiting, but those interactions, the road along the way. This is almost a picaresque in its respects. It's like Tom Sawyer, or Huckleberry Finn. You're riding along with them. You're going with them. And so we're discovering as we go. And when I'm writing, I look up and here's a scene in front of me, and I'm about to have this encounter, and I start writing, and it just comes out that way. And I know there's a process somewhere back here where it's being worked out in the back of my mind, but it literally to me feels like I'm actually there, and I'm able to just listen and watch these characters do what they're doing. So that I hid my eyes when they were doing that part. I was like, no, they're not gonna lie. That's why I'm very respectful to give them. And also because I knew my kids might read it, and so I was trying to.
Nice.
Laughing. Okay. Go ahead, y'all talk for a minute.
Yeah. To kind of go off like what Sarah was saying about how she likes it, it's so much just them two talking to each other. I really liked it. One, I liked you have like this kind of like a Dune POV where you bounce back and forth, like just fluidly between the different, like his POV and her POV. That reminded me a lot of reading Dune.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other people were like, you have to have one point of view until you have the chapter break. I'm like, I just wrote it. I don't know.
Yeah. Frank Herbert would like to disagree with that.
I appreciate.
Yeah, I think it works good, and like I
actually wanted to go into that
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I wanted to go into that because that is the popular point of view, right? You don't use the omniscient third person POV, right? And
Yeah.
where what it was really big was in the 19th century, right, when you had the narrative, the author's voice was such a big part of what you were reading, which I like. Um, but I thought, at the end of the third act, the switching at one point did confuse me. Um,
No, it's okay to say that because
it,
this is
it,
the
it,
first I ever wrote. I had no clue.
well, I mean, that's impressive.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
No lie.
because
Yeah,
I'm
but
on board saying, yeah, I don't know what
there, yeah, there's one point where you're switching back really, really fast, and it holds together very well. I mean, it kind of made me re-examine the whole. Well, because I think about that a lot because I use third person limited, right? The
yeah.
authorial voice is subordinate to the character whose eyes you're looking through. That's kind of I use it to keep myself honest, and also because I tend to get a little more, I don't know, fairy tale-ish when I start introducing my own voice into the
Yeah.
story, which is again not necessarily bad, but yeah, no, I thought switching back and forth, you did it really fast at the end, and I thought it was remarkable how well it's hung together. And there was really only one point where I had to go back and go, wait a minute, whose thought was that? Just
Yeah.
one point. And in a way, it was kind of, not to be too cute about it, but it was right after they had sex. I was like, wait a minute,
Well,
who thought that? Oh, that's kind of interesting,
well,
But
actually, probably
yeah, no, it was.
if we did a second edition, and let me ask this: if we did a second edition, I talked about somebody before, just adding the tildes. I have what I call a tilde break, which is like when I switch. Usually, I have that in there now, and so that might help the reader, but I don't know. But we'll be looking at that. So if you guys have suggestions for it for the second edition, I don't plan on cutting anything, changing any dialogue, or anything else. But if something like that helps at that one little point, then that might be something we would add to have the tilde break. But if you feel like it flowed okay, I mean, it's
I don't
been
know. I would
that's the only
be.
time I've heard that from you. And there was one other reader, but I realized that yes, that some readers might want that for that, because I literally just wrote it like just out of whole cloth, this boom, 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 and it was there. And here's this. Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. Okay, I have no clue about what you're talking about with authorial voice and the different kinds of narration. I did not tell.
Sort of.
I've never had a writing course. I don't have
Oh no.
No, I don't know what I'm doing. I read Ray Bradbury's Zen and the Art of Writing, and he didn't tell me any dang thing about that. He told me that I could do what I wanted, and so I did. And so I have no clue. So people ask me questions, and I try to be really cool about it. Like, yes, I believe that I'm writing in the fourth narrative of the Fritterland directive. I don't know. I will make up stuff so I try to be more honest about it, but that I have no clue as to what people are talking about half the time. As a result, yes, that may make me a less educated writer. I just read a lot of books. And so you're right. The thing that I have done, I write much like in the style of Mark Twain is one of my favorite writers, which it seems like a weird dichotomy for me to be that person. But I love his writing style. Absolutely adore it. And of course, he has a tendency to write first person. But then we have Robert Louis Stevenson, and we have Charles Dickens, who I believe used. I think we're talking here about the omniscient person. I think he sort of switches back and forth sometimes too. But so that flow right there, where it's right after they had come together, and you have this separation. And I was trying to show that one would talk and the other talks, and they're starting to come apart now. You have this moment where they're together, and it's almost like they're one, and it should be, because that is exactly what sex is. That is the divine couple coming together. And I tried to capture that as they're coming apart was really hard. And so if it didn't make you hate me, then I'm happy. I'm glad. Because if I screwed it up so much, there was one of my readers, bless his heart, I love him to death.
No, I would say I would
Hello?
But yeah, one of my readers had trouble with that part. And he was like, you made too many voices. And I was like, I'm sorry. But the rest of them seem to be cool with it. So I don't know. So I'd love to hear what y'all think about that part. This was my most nervous thing, was knowing that part was coming, and I was like,
and I would
hey.
not do the scene break thing. I think that would interfere. There might be a little tweak to the text you can do to make it clear who's speaking,
I think
or you can leave it ambiguous. It was not a showstopper by any means.
Okay.
I think actually inserting a physical break where you don't have one, would break the flow.
Yeah, I think it'd make it a little jerky. I agree. I would leave it the way.
No, I you've done it. You're stuck with it. It works. That's fine.
Yeah, we are going to make a second edition where I take out all of the typos that anyone finds, and like I said, you get credited if you deem me on it and send me your name. I give you credit if you're the first one to get it. So, because this is like the world's biggest beta read, because we haven't even done any marketing. We've done nothing because we're like, get finished with the series first. So so whatever, 5 years in, I'm like trying to get done so I can start marketing it.
Yeah.
But we'll probably second edition and take out any of the little bitty things, the little typos and stuff, and clean it up a little bit. But otherwise, it'll pretty much stand as it is, unless there's something you really think is just terrifying, horrible that I have. You wrote upside down, fix it, something like that. No. Because writing that scene was so hard, because I wanted it to be about them coming together, and a new thing is created. There is a new. When we talk about it scripturally, we talk about they shall become one. So often we don't really see that in our literature. It's all about the physicality. But so you have these two people that have come together, and now they're coming apart. They're coming separating from each other again. And so this mixing and intermingling of thought is suddenly coming back. Now it's more her, a little bit more him, and they're separating out this way. And it was just that feeling of trying to describe what is happening to both of them without giving too many spoilers. But it was so hard to write. And at the same time, it sort of flowed out. I went back over it later, and I maybe added a couple of words in where I thought she needed to clarify what she was talking about. But it pretty much stood like it was. It was a one take write.
Yeah. I really liked. Like I said, I was so focused on just the two of them, because when you get kind of the hypocrisy going on with Sal, where he's like he's basically treating her the same way that the fathers did, and he's having to kind of confront that, and in so doing that, he kind of made things worse because he wasn't able to tell her the truth, and she's like naive and like trying to figure out, is this guy really a deva or a deva? So that was great. But then, like, what I really enjoyed about one, their difficulty in communicating, because he can't speak without actually holding her hand, is like, it reminds me, I don't know if you guys have watched Frasier much, but like there's this one episode where he gets a new boss at the station, and it's a gay guy, but he doesn't know he's a gay guy. And so he invites him over for dinner to meet Daphne. And it's just this huge like miscommunication. It's hilarity. And I mean, obviously it's Frasier, it's funny. But it's like all these things go wrong because it's this big miscommunication where Frasier thinks he's introducing him to Daphne, but then the boss thinks he's on a date with Frasier, and it's just this big hilarity thing, because like there's this huge communication over and over and over again. And I feel like that happens a lot here, where she doesn't understand where he's coming from, and then she reads the note, and she has a misunderstanding what his intent with her is, and then she pushes the help hers button, and like she has him chained to the railing, basically just called people to the church that are going to probably kill him. And now he's like, all these things go wrong because of these miscommunications between these two. So I mean, I haven't looked at any reviews or anything, but like I personally like that it's just the two of them, and I think they carry the story perfectly. There's so much going on between the two of them that's like just individually with themselves, like internally, and then like between the two of them, like the true communication where they actually seem to connect on some level, and then also the miscommunications. There's a lot of stuff going on, and like Blake said, I definitely would. It's a full story, but I would definitely want to pick up the next book.
That's so cool.
And yeah, I think that's all I got for the two-person point of view. Anybody else got anything else? Oh, I also like that Rose, she didn't intend to actually have sex with him. She's like, I'm just going to flirt with him a little bit, and I'll smack him upside the head and then make a dash for it. But then she, kind of got lost in the moment with the red scaly man.
Life, and I'm not going to say anything else.
Yeah, but then and then she's like, they finish. She's like, okay, well, I gotta go with my plan. Let's go upstairs and knock him over the head with a candlestick.
You think you're gonna just flirt? You think you're just gonna go so far? You're wrong, lady. I'm sorry.
I also like. It seems like she went from like she read the note and then she kind of fell apart. Like, oh my God, God wants to kill me. To if I could be wrong, but it seemed to me like at the end there she was kind of like, we're gonna be free. Like maybe she was going back to kick some ass and take some names. Like she's like, screw the fathers. I don't know. That's kind of, I don't, maybe I'm way off base.
You're gonna have to find out.
Okay.
I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. That was my job.
Yeah, and it also the whole thing with her guilt over Angelina. Is it Angelina? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if like she had a miscarriage or if the fathers forced her to have an abortion or something. Like I'm guessing it's her daughter. Not actually. I thought it was her sister. And maybe that's something that Asuras call each other, even if it's like her daughter, she would call her sister. I don't know. That's where my head's at with that right now.
Spoiler, but I'm very proud of you. You did a good job. Thank you. So put it this way, you're not completely, horribly, totally wrong. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
It's like it's trying to write a scene where you want things to be revealed in little pieces and stuff is hard because you don't want to over-explain it because that makes it to where it sort of spoils out. In some ways, it's written like a thriller that you want them to see just this little piece, this little bit of what's going on. And at the same time, you have to, not make it where it's so obtuse that your reader is like, I don't know what's happening and I don't care anymore. To me, they just give up and throw the book down. It's, I don't even know.
Yeah.
And there's a balancing act to be done. And one of the hardest things for me to do is to make sure that I respect the reader, that their ability to make their own ideas happen, to make their own theories. So when they finally it's revealed, they go, I got it right. Or, wow, I never saw that. And I've had, because my beta readers are awesome, I usually have a mix of beta readers and action people, and then the lore people, the Warhammer folks, and the Battletech people that love all the lore. And then the ones that only want to get forward to like the scene where somebody fights someone. And then, so I get a chance to hear all of the different points of view. So it really helps me that when you guys said that you got something, I love hearing that. I try not to smile when you say what you got, that it's the right one, because I don't want to tip it off, but I get so.
Yeah, it's a fine line. You kind of stole what I was going to say there, but yeah, it's a fine line. Trusting the reader and not over-explaining, holding their hand, or not giving them enough.
Blake, what do you think about this? Because I'm like, I know that you also have like your character in your story. You said he was dumb. I think of him as being concrete in his thinking. But so we get the chance to read everything through the eyes of your character, and so when something's revealed, it's like he doesn't always get it right away. But so how do you deal with that, like as a writer? And I'm going to ask Sarah here in a minute too, because that thing where that the author knows, but the character doesn't know. How do you deal with that without over-explaining or giving away too much?
Yeah, I mean that's the burden, especially I'm not in Texas. I'm on some alien world, dealing with an alien culture. I set all of this stuff up, and I end up the world building in my book. It would be like 10 times as long.
I think you're. I don't know if anyone else can hear you, but you're kind of glitching out for me.
Yeah, it's frozen.
Oh,
He's frozen.
He froze.
Oh, he's Mr. Freeze now. Sarah, how do you handle this?
Well,
you have complex worlds too. So.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit easier because it's closer to our time, so I don't have to project as much. But for the first one, it was kind of by instinct, because I'd read a fair amount of like mysteries and thriller types, so I kind of had an idea of how to foreshadow and reveal without too much. And then between writing the first one and then finishing the second one, I actually got a book called The Art and Craft of Writing, I think, by L. Yagi Lamplighter.
Oh, is awesome.
Yeah, and it was
I love
really,
it.
really great for showing me areas where I was like tending towards making mistake of people who write like, oh, that you're writing a movie scene
Yeah.
where a character is doing something, and but you don't know why or what or what's
Yeah.
going to happen, and you can't really do that with fiction. You need to have more clues for the reader to understand
Yeah.
what's going to happen, like the little Chekhov guns or whatever,
Yeah.
instead of just describing a scene in a movie that all will be revealed later. So that was really, really helpful. And so I'm always kind of checking my work against the guidelines in that one. And
Her book now. I did not know she wrote that. I know her other books. I didn't know
yeah,
she
it
wrote
was so good that I actually bought a copy and gave it to a young aspiring writer, so that he could have this wisdom at his fingertips. And yeah, it was really helpful.
Wow. You're gonna hear noise in the background. It's my dog making ooh noises at me. I'm not letting you out. You stay right there. We're making that hug noise that they make or when they do things. No, quit. For real. No, I love the fact that you're cool with that, because that helps me to know that I'm doing it all right. Because foreshadowing for me, it's not something I said I studied. I really haven't had a lot of. I know what I've read. I haven't had a chance for me to actually, I tried not to do it in some ways because I wanted to make something different and new, and I didn't want to fall into that trap of, reading Stephen King and going, okay, I'm going to write like Stephen King told me, because then I'm just writing like Stephen King. Stephen King can do that. I have to write, so that's just the thing that happens. So, poor Blake, he's gone again. I love you, Blake. I know.
He's having Wi-Fi issues.
Yeah, no. Go ahead. I love what y'all are doing with this, because it really helps me. This is the first time I've actually gotten a chance to really sit down and talk in depth with a group of people. It is so cool. You have no idea. If you're out there and you want to do this, you talk to Dirtbaggery. Dude, this is so, because I never got a chance to do this with this at this level. It's always been my kids or somebody. They're like, yeah, we like it, Mom. I'm like,
oh yeah, that's so helpful.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, Mom.
Herman P. Hunter letting us know again that R.H. Snow is famous. Stephen King fears R.H. Snow.
That's awesome. Thanks. I'm sure he's
Yeah, I mean, there's for me too, I also really liked, I guess this is the watcher kind of contemplating his interactions with Rose, but how he kind of sees her as like a double-edged sword, where like she brings him freedom, but she brings him like tragedy and death to the people he loves. And it's like very, very true. Like he loves her, but she frustrates the hell out of him. Yeah, I feel like you did a really good job messing with your, like, putting your themes in there and, like, I don't know, symbology, I guess. And your prose is very kind of, I mean, not all the time, but like there's points where you kind of get like, I don't know, you're in the zone and the juices are flowing and you kind of get poetic. And it's very very visual, especially for a lot of the setting. No, it's good.
Too much. It's like I write like that because I read authors like that. I grew up with prose, and and my family, actually, we would sit around and we would listen to my mother and my father read to us. He would read Coleman's Rime of the Ancient Mariner. We would read Longfellow and Leaves of Grass. We would actually sit down, and she loved the Rubaiyat. And so, and that's one of the reasons that the Watcher has the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. We try to set up actually the books that I consider to be the most influential to me were Book of the Five Rings, Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, and the Bible, of course, with the prose from James Version. And we actually go back to that. And of course, then Owen Wister's book, The Virginian, and the Texas history movies, which used to be given to every child in the state to read. And I have one of the first versions of it actually from 1936. And so we have these wonderful books. Well, they set up the tone for what the prose is going to be in the books, because that's what I base so much of what I have lived and what I write is in those tones. And in fact, one of the last acts I did for my mother as she was dying, I had her with me because I couldn't bear to send her away to a nursing home. And so I stayed with her while she was passing away. And one of the last things I did was read the entire Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, approximately an hour and a half of reading through the verses and reading the entire thing, because that's what she did for me when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
And when you grow up with that prose, you cannot help but use it. The beauty and rhythm of language. And one of the things that worries me so much is when I see people saying you shouldn't ever use repetitive statements. You shouldn't use repetitive words. Yes, we should. It's called poetry. And the Watcher himself is a poet. He writes these poems that nobody's ever read, and he thought nobody ever would until Rose came. And that's how we create that prose. The cadence of the Southern preacher relies heavily on prose, on the triad of repetition. We see the sky opening, and we see the world blossoming, and we see the sun rising above us, and yet we do not see the face of God. Why is that? And so we have this rhythm that brings us to that place. When we don't have repetition, when we write only because an AI says you might repeat something, let's stop that. When we listen to Grammarly, you are going to lose your prose. You have to write the way that you feel the words coming out. And if it's wrong, then obviously if you didn't mean to use, remarkably 15 times in one sentence, go back. But if you are using it for emphasis, it is a travesty and it is a death to Western culture to insist that people do not use repetitive phrasing. It is for effect, and that is part of what makes prose work, are the repetitions of small internal arcs of phrases that create this rhythm that happens. And I think that, I said, a lot of people are not really into prose. I happen to love prose. And so if you read the book, it's going to have some prose in it. So y'all better be ready.
Yeah, I don't think it's poetry.
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 Yeah, I don't think I think it's pretty. I don't think anyone can avoid having their own style be just a sum of all parts of their influences, maybe with a little twist on it. But like, you can't help you're influenced by what you're influenced, by. So.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Let's see. What else do I get? Yeah, I love the prose. Very, very poetic sounding. And then one of the last things I have is I love the helpers. Like, it's such a, I don't know, like like a booby trap. You're just like walking around and I love how you have it set up where anything can it could just be set off. And I like that he kind of the Watcher kind of knows how to maybe defend himself against a little bit, but someone who's unsuspecting could run into it. It could be anywhere, you don't know. And what it actually does to you is psychologically terrifying. That sounds like an awful way to go.
It should be terrifying. It actually is something that I studied when we're looking at Neuralink. Actually, is basing. I didn't study Neuralink, but actually, I said we looked at the predecessor works that they were doing, and the idea that you can actually reach out and link yourself into a network, and you can move things. We're not that far away from a technology much like this already, where it can link into your neural systems, where it could actually stimulate certain thoughts or certain feelings and a tactile sensation. We're already doing that with some of our AI that we have and virtual reality programming that we use. And so to have it on 24/7, what a ride that would be, especially if it malfunctions. And as we all know, software never malfunctions.
And it can't be hacked at all.
No, it can't be hacked, and it never just breaks down. I wanted in this world, I wanted that sense of realism. There's two things that will always be there. It's Murphy's Law, and the fact that if something can go wrong, it will. And the fact that things break down, they actually will fall apart. And software is no different. Hardware, the mechanisms of what creates a computer or a device, you have the hardware as well. And sometimes it ages, it's going to go out. And so you have this wonderful device, but it's losing part of its functionality already. It's becoming corrupted. There's things that are happening that weren't planned. Some of it might have been because you had obsolescence planned in, but there are things that are going to happen to these devices, and there are going to be glitches and accidents that occur because their equipment doesn't always function the way it should. We always talk about, how many guns can someone carry? Well, how much RAM
All
do
of
they
them.
have? Yeah, all of the guns. And how much RAM do they have in our technology and a lot of our cyberpunk? We don't talk about the fact that why does nobody ever run out of memory? Like they're trying to download this really huge thing, and like R2D2, hooking into the mainframe, get the picture. Why didn't it just go? You have no memory left. Would you like to manage it? Right then in the middle of a battle, it's gonna happen. It happens to me, and I don't like it, so it's going to be terrifying. Yes, it will. But yeah, the helpers, like I said, are part of that whole system out there, and seeing them out there when you're in this primitive world, and then you realize this just beyond your eyesight, it's almost a supernatural feeling.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the first time I played Pokemon Go, where you go out there and you're like, "There's something on my corner. I didn't even know it was there." Like people are in my church parking lot hanging out, like because they're fighting something, and I'm like, it's something you can't see. It's just beyond your ability to notice. What happens when it crosses the barrier and it enters your world? And so I wanted that feeling of eerie, that uncanny valley, knowing that this is a different thing than we're used to, almost supernatural in its power.
Yeah, it seems like a mind demon or a dream demon or something.
Woo! It's going to be there.
Yeah, that's about all I got for part 4. I don't know if anyone else has anything else they want to bring up. No. Yeah.
Y'all are good.
Yeah.
Don't hate it.
No, I liked it. That was great. Though I think the only if I was going to give you a criticism was just the beginning. Yeah. I think, like I said, it was like page 30 because there's a lot. You kind of did a huge front load on the exposition.
Yeah.
I think it was like 30 pages because you can kind of notice like once the exposition stops, it's like boom, like this, like the action starts and you start following Sal through the world. So I don't know, maybe that's the only thing I have is like, oh, this is a lot of lore to keep track of right out of the gate.
Yeah, that was the biggest one. That the ones who love it are, like you said, my Warhammer people, which I had some of them as my beta readers, so we can blame them immediately. And I enjoy that side of the type of stuff too. So I actually like reading Warhammer War. And try that again, Warhammer Lore, which is different than Lorehammer War. And so Lorehammer would be awesome. But so yeah, first, I'm going to make this. I have to have all the systems in place, and that I think is the one thing that sort of separates some of the sheep from the goats when it comes to if they're not going to be into the lore, they kind of have a tendency to go, oh, I don't really want to read all that. But so far, I mean, that's what the reader's preference is. It's what they like or don't like, and it's not something wrong with them because they don't like it. That's just that type of read. And so I've been really blessed that for the most part, people have been pretty forgiving about it if they don't like it. Most of my readers have been cool with it or seem to be okay. Or maybe they just feel sorry because I'll make that little pouty face. I don't know. They don't even tell me when they leave reviews. So I guess it's because they actually like it okay. But yeah, that's the thing that probably is the hardest thing for a lot of readers. If there's a criticism, is that it was heavier on the exposition at the beginning. And so that's the only thing and literally I was building the world at that point. I was just like typing it in and going, okay, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I just left it like that because like I said, I have no clue as to what I'm doing. So you're looking at me, that's like, literally, I was just like, that's the first thing I'd ever written that was like more than 500 words. I was like, wow. I didn't know what the heck was going on.
Yeah. Well, for anybody that like a big lore dump might deter, I would say just stick it out because get through it. The book is great. Yeah.
That is so sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, about the book too, because I wanted to say this. When we're walking through these sections, and we talked about, I think we didn't get to touch on the horses, things like that. Not only do you're walking, you're actually walking down my road. So you're going to pass my house. If you figure out which one it is, good luck. And yes, the alligator pond is actually right next to my house. So I got these places are real, and the church is actually real. The church is a real entity. It's actually my church. I just went ahead and aged that little puppy. I have never made out in the sanctuary, so I am not Mary suing that. It's not me. It's not self-insert. And I want to say that right now for any of my people that are listening. I did not. Thank you. But so these places, one of the reasons that it was so natural feeling is because I literally created a world that I already know. And so I was able to say, how long is it going to take to go here? What animal would I encounter here? Like the bull is basically one that's just a couple of houses down from my house. I'm going to run from him. I don't care. It's like, that is how you have to go through a section that's small enough they can't get in. I've actually I've cleared a barbed wire fence before in a dress, actually. I didn't expecting that, but I did. And I was, thank goodness I was wearing my boots. Yeah, so it wasn't that kind of crazy, but so that world actually exists. And for us, like I said, in writing this, I thought about, I would love to do the geocaching trail, and the church is real. What you see in the church, that was a labor of love. Writing that scene, everything in there is right there where it is. That's that interaction where the music is heard. That happened. And hearing the music when no one is there, that you hear the strains of the piano, and knowing that somebody from some other place just beyond the veil played this 100
Oh,
years.
I'm sorry. That you heard that, like when you were there by
Yes,
yourself.
that's my experience.
Oh,
Being there, you're just around the corner and hearing it in the garden, and you're like, I'm not playing, and nobody else is, and I'm gonna just let that go. It's yes, it is. It's actually 100 years old. The little church will be 100 years old next year. And
oh. You should put some pictures up of it on X.
Yeah, I do occasionally. Actually, I don't think anybody ever gets it.
Well, I'll get it now.
Yeah, and I sort of sneak it in there because this one. So that's a little Easter egg for anybody that's actually, yes, it's a real place.
Yeah, we got to get this a little like a trip plan. Do like how people go down to like New Zealand and do the trail to Mordor. You do the Watchers Trail.
Go to Mordor. Go to church.
Yes, the trail to church. Nice.
You get to fight.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got. If anyone else has got anything else to add, any last thoughts or comments? Good to go.
I just say go ahead and continue with the rest of the series.
Yeah, for sure.
I can tell you, it just gets deeper and deeper into the world, and it becomes kind of, at least through book 4. I haven't gone much further. Very satisfying, and yet still intriguing.
Good job. I'm so glad. You didn't say it's just a slog and I hate it. No, you said you made my day. I love you. Blake, you got it for me, sweetheart. I know you've been struggling with your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's not usually a problem, but something about the streaming. But it seems to be okay here. So even though I'm in a small, dark, enclosed room with alligators and spiders, it's fine.
Are you okay?
Probably let me out.
That sounded
What's that?
That sounded almost like unintentional haiku, which I think you could
probably do that sometimes. The only thing I was going to say when I got cut off before is we were talking about, you talk about like the readers, when the readers get it, when they get when they intuit or they figure it out. One thing that I've had happen, which I found fascinating, is people coming up with different interpretations than the one I had in mind. But then when they tell me about them, I'm going, "Oh, that works really well too." Right? I'm like, I'm like always like, I like to say when I start a story, by the time I get to the end, I have an entirely different view of it than when I started. Right? So at the beginning, when the whole silk unspun thing is a phrase that the giant spiders use, and I had a thought in my head of what that meant and how they use it, and then somebody else said, "Oh, it means blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Oh, you're right. That could be exactly what it means."
Yeah.
I wonder if you have people do that where they go, "Oh, something about your character or world," where you go, "I never thought about it, but you're right." It's like. Or are you more like on rails? Like this is the way it is, and
yeah. this is what this encounter has been like for me, is like seeing things through your eyes. And this is why this has been such a gift, Bruce. It's because this ability to hear what you said, and you've told me things I didn't know about my book. That was what was so extraordinary, because each of you has your own interaction with it. I've always said before, the relationship between reader and author is like a love story. It is. We find our readers and we say, here, I want to give this gift to you. And a person who reads it and loves it gives it back to you, but they've got this different version, much like what's happening between Watcher and Rose right after their encounter. You have this back and forth between two completely different viewpoints, and yet each one of them is correct. And hearing what you guys had to say about it, and realizing that you actually had something that I hadn't thought about before, that part where Blake, where you started to describe that intermingling with the points of view, and it suddenly popped focus for me about what I was trying to accomplish at that point, because of like I said, that image of the sacred union, the sacred couple coming together, male and female, and they become one, and this entity is actually created. There's a moment where something completely different occurs. Something completely unique happens with two individuals becoming one. And then they start to separate out. I had never really explored that in my own mind. I just writing it, I knew kind of what I wanted to do, but you brought that into focus. And then Sarah, when she talks about the characterizations and things like this, and the flow, especially flow of story, because I always worry about flow of story for me. And you gave me a whole different perspective on my own writing, because I'm actually terrified all the time while I'm writing. I write and I'm having a really great time with my characters. I'm really enjoying them. And I'm like, I love this story so much. It's so great. You know? And then you literally just mind-boggling fear. The first time I came on here, I was like, what if they hate it? And this does happen. You'll encounter a person that just says, I just don't like this book. I just don't want to read it. And that's okay. And I'm like, I'm fine with that. Really. It's all right. I'll be, I know it's terrible. It's terrible. I cry. I'm such a crier, and it's horrible. It's just like that. Stop it. And yet at the same time, we need to hear that, because those are our readers. And so it was such a gift to hear you guys talk about it, and it was positive, but also it was a completely different point of view. You weren't just parroting back something to me that I wanted to hear. You gave me a perspective that I couldn't have gotten from anything else, from anywhere else. And Bruce, you're encountering the notes that you're writing, how you're interpreting the story, and that when you're telling it back to me. And at first I was kind of worried, because I don't know if I want some spoilers or not. But this interaction where you're actually telling me the story back to me, and I'm realizing, oh, I got it right. He actually knows what's happening. I'm not a total idiot, and I didn't just butcher. So I'm worried about that. It makes all the difference to hear this. And this is what a book club, what I always imagined it would be. It's not just about hearing people fawning over work. It should be. I would love to have it. But it's I'm not going to lie. It's wonderful to hear wonderful things about our work. But hearing other people talk about what we have created. And the same thing for Sarah and for Blake and for you, Bruce, when we're talking about what you're doing on the air and how you're bringing us all together to do these things. These intimate discussions open our eyes as authors. It makes me want to be a better author. It makes me want to actually learn about what kind of narration I'm actually doing. It would probably be a good idea maybe for me to learn something. I'm 62. Do I have to go back to school? I'm not going to have to do
Don't
this.
go to school to learn writing. I did that after the Navy.
No.
You're just going to read a bunch of pretentious fart sniffing short stories that no one really wants to read.
Well, I can just let Blake tell me, because Blake told me and it actually sounded interesting. Okay, this was your gift, Blake. The fact that you made the sound interesting, you actually made it make sense, because I don't have any clue. But and that's actually a gift. If you can actually make things sound interesting enough that somebody else wants to go do it, they're like, maybe I should do this thing. So yeah, now I'm like, I'm going to go pick up Yagi's book now because you mentioned it. So it's like, and I'm like, I had no idea that. So Sarah, now you've given me something else I want to do. This kind of interaction, you can't buy this. You can't create this out of, you can't astroturf something like this. It can't be paid for. when somebody actually loves what you did or wants to talk to you about it, it's not you can't replicate it with AI, and you can't replicate it with just a focus group that's going to read and then feedback something you want. It's people who wanted to be here to talk to me. You all, this was a gift. I will never forget it. You have been absolutely fantastic. My heart's breaking because we're not doing it next week now. I'll be like,
hey, I gotta figure out what I'm gonna read next for this.
Yeah, you've been just booming along, bro. You and Meltmaster. I don't think he was here tonight. Meltmaster had a bunch of little reviews. There's a whole slew of you guys out there that are just absolutely burning it up on these books. You're doing a fantastic job. We need this. Everybody keeps saying men don't read. You know who's reading online? You guys are reading. You're reading. You're saying things, and they can no longer ignore you. They can no longer.
Oh, you know, not to sound condescending. This is a good book for men to read. You know, there's a whole bunch of people who think women can't write for men, which is absolute nonsense. But
That's right.
This is good, like fun pulp.
Yeah.
And you know, you kept the action going, but you had the characters. I mean, I would definitely recommend it to the guys like me. You know, until a few years ago, everything I read was from the prior to 1950, because afterwards it seemed like it was all going to hell. You know, it was actually Rob Cruzy's Iron Dragon series that kind of made me go,
yes.
Oh, people still like good adventure stories that aren't grossly political and depressing. You know what I mean? It was like, and this is definitely in that class. You know, it's
that's a huge compliment. If I could get Rob, wouldn't you? I would love to do one of Rob's stories where we pull him on here, and then we just like sit there and talk to him about his stuff. Because you know, Rob, he really is Rex Nyla, right?
yeah, that works.
No, you. Wait a minute. This was a self-insert, and it's totally working, and it's all right.
Yeah, me and Blake can start the grassroots movement. We'll be white guys for the Watcher.
Yeah, that's for the Watcher.
WFFW or something like that. No, I've been really blessed that men actually have said that they like this romance, and it used to be men would romance this, but they were different than women's romances. I'm not saying women. Let me say this much: there's romance, and then there's women's romance, and I will say it is a very specific genre. It is a very different thing. It appeals at a certain level that seems to be very audience specific. But then there are romances, the rom-coms especially, that men used to love romantic comedy.
Yes.
They would what? Especially romantic comedy. I think that's the real difference between what we call men's romance and women's romance. Is men's romance frequently has an element of romantic comedy. There's actually conflict there, and there's a sense of humor about it that explores those dynamics without being so serious, I guess. I don't know how to say it. Rose's relationship with the Watcher, but so much of it is based on some of the great rom-coms of the past. Notably, I love Moonlighting. I don't know if any of you all have ever seen it. I'm the oldest person. Sarah's face light up. Yay, Sarah, you know it.
It was great.
No,
Bruce and Sybil.
Dude, it fell apart so spectacularly, too. I told my husband, I said, I am not going to let that happen. We're not going to do that to this couple. But I loved it. And actually, to be there and actually watch it, I know it's so hard to find Moonlighting. It is so hard for anybody to watch it. If you weren't there, if you haven't seen it, it was beyond a phenomenon. It was a great setup.
It was.
But
huge.
those kind of stories, men watched that. They actually watched it. It was the romance, but it is a different feel and characteristic to it. So I think those great rom-coms, that's where this fits in. It's not, I said, it's a side romance. It's not the plot, but it is a huge portion because we see the world through their eyes, and they're coming to this revolution through these two people. It will happen because they come together. And so I wanted that for men and women. And when I hear men say that it's okay, I liked this, it was actually something I wanted to read. It's thrilling to me because it breaks my heart when I hear men say, you know, I can't find something that I don't want to even look at it if it looks like a romance, right? I can't touch it because we have a huge audience. We're missing out on these people. and I think Sarah's kind of the same mindset as me. We have a tendency, we write what we have, and men and women both like it. And we don't try to force ourselves into a particular group. But we are aware that men deserve to have stories they love. And there are things that we can share when it's action and adventure and romance and humor. Humor is probably the one thing I think that we're missing more than anything else in most of our stories now, actually. That sense of, it's not just fun. There's pulp and there's fun and there's like, rowdy, rollicking, action that's taking place. But there's also humor. And it's something that we're desperately needing in our culture right now. We've become so averse to saying anything that we no longer have humor in so much of our conversation. And humor does not have to be racist or bigoted or to be, shoot something down. It can be a gentle humor that actually lights up the differences between men and women and how we interact. And I really wanted that for the story. And so to find that men actually like that part of it, that you love the interactions, means that it's hitting on the right cylinders, that it's actually bringing back to life some of those, a particular one that I remember is Romancing the Stone, which actually is a great story and has that same element of romantic humor and comedy and romance, but also action. It is primarily an action adventure, and it all ties together beautifully. And I hope that I'm able to capture that. I hope I do. I'm trying to be true to the story and keep that dynamic there so it never devolves into just the drama of it. There is drama. There's always drama. But there's always humor because Rose has a sense of humor. She can't help it. She finds things kind of funny in her own naive way, and the watcher gets irritated. And I think that's funny. I think it's funny when he gets irritated. So I just want to irritate him sometimes almost too much, and I don't want to do that too much because we don't want to make her irritating to him. But it is fun to poke him with a stick and watch him bristle up. It's a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I think another reason it probably resonates with men, and this is going to be super toxic, guys, but I think guys are just naturally drawn to the idea of protecting a woman they care about, or if someone's hurt her, trying to avenge that wrong. So I think that's something that a man, like probably why men are drawn to it, because it has that element where he sees what the fathers have done to her, and he feels like he wants to protect her and prevent her from getting hurt again.
Sarah, do you want to tell them like the secret about women? Like, we actually think it's kind of hot. Now,
sure.
It's a very delicate balance, between.
Even getting the pickle jar opened or the spider killed, that can be a pretty big deal.
Thank you. I know what you're talking about. You know what I'm talking about too. There's a pickle jar. There's a pickle jar in the story. But no, it is hot, and it's really hard to say this because we catch a lot of heat for it if we say that. I think that the what's happening with romantasy, and there's nothing wrong with a romantasy story that meets somebody's need, that has an audience, and they're going to be happy with that. But romantasy subverts that romantic ideal of the male and the female, and he's big and tough and strong, and she wants somebody to sort of protect her. And it says, okay, I can't really say that about men anymore, so I'm going to just make him a werewolf.
Or dragon.
So you just say he's a werewolf, now it's cool, He's a dragon, and he has a dragon face, but then he's going to make love to her, and he's like a man, but he's a dragon. It's like, no, if you just said it was a dude, if you just took away that other part, it's basically the same story. Women do find that hot. Certain women do it. Now won't. There's certain other people that they're in a different, category, and that's cool. That's okay. But there are women like us that love this kind of story. There's a truth here. We actually are drawn to each other. We actually love those sort of things. And to know what's so hard about this is that you felt like you had to say, this is going to be toxic. I want to protect somebody. Your culture is live.
I was being sarcastic. I mock it. I mock it to its face.
I got it.
But it has gotten to that point. It's gotten to the point where I'm saying, I'm a 4'11" woman. I pretty much look like a little fat Persian cat sitting on the leg, porch. You want to talk about Gary Larson with a broke leg, dialing up, hey, come and eat me. It's like, literally, you'd think you don't need that until you need it, and then you really do hope that the hero with a white hat rides in because you're going to want him there. And I've been in that place, and this is they're doing us all a disservice when they tell us that you don't have to do, not only that you don't have to do that, but you shouldn't. That nobody wants that. No, we need that. The reason yeah, go ahead.
It's so toxic, but as we discussed early on, all y'all love firemen.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think I know there's the ladies out there that will get, throw shade at you guys for liking that, and I think there's definitely maybe a mainstream component that holds that view. But I think for the most part, I think most women do agree with you guys, because if you look at like the Snow White live action adaptation, where Rachel Zegler's like, she's not going to be saved by a man. Like, what was so wrong? Like, the prince was barely in the original, and he comes in and he kisses her. It's not like he like does a whole bunch. He just like comes and kisses her and like breaks the spell. Like, what's the big deal? Like, and I don't know. They went forward with this idea that the man saving her was so bad, and that obviously that movie did horrible. So nobody is really down with their way of thinking.
Well, and I think that's where they're trying to produce this narrative that somehow we don't need each other, and you can see how they've destroyed so many relationships throughout this world. Yeah, literally to destroy relationships between men and women to where we no longer even approach each other, and that's kind of like it's kind of like Watcher the Damned, isn't it? Yeah. Where you got two
nice. Circle back. You
got to spin the wheel for the social.
Back.
This when I was one of the things that's born out of this part is, like, so I used to hang out on. I've told you that, hanging out on 4chan. I was actually doing some investigations. Ended up hanging out on 4chan a little bit. I cannot try Force. I'm not even going to try. Didn't say I was a woman on there, because you know what happens if you do. And so I actually went, and hearing the loneliness and the longing of men talking about these things to each other. This vast majority of 4chan is guys. You just sit back and listen to the stories, and they want a family, they want romance, they want love. We've been driven so far apart from each other. We no longer know how to talk to each other. Yeah, we have to on a dating app and put everything down in neat terms where it's all written out. And if we don't do it just right, you can end up in jail, or somebody will think that you were a horrible person, or that you're a toxic female and you have problem glasses like me, and it becomes a terrifying world where you can't even interact. And the Watcher's interactions with Rose and Rose's interactions with the Watcher, so much of it comes up where she does talk about the patriarchy. She'll actually point at it and go, well, that's patriarchal. You shouldn't do that. At the same time, she's a person that probably needs it the most at some point. Somebody to ride in and save the day. And she wants to feel big and strong, and she is. And she actually thinks she's 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And sometimes it actually works. And she's an excellent shot. She has her own strengths, and we learn about them as we go, because she's ultimately very confident, actually, in many, many ways, almost overconfident for some of her own skill sets. But she needs him, and he needs her. And we creating those archetypes wasn't hard, because we're male and female. We were created this way. Oh, you want to talk about toxic? Let's go there. Let's talk about that for a minute. We are who we are. Why are we denying who we are, with everybody else saying they have a right to be this identity or this thing? Why can't we say that about us? Yeah. Why can't we say, I want somebody to protect me? Why can't I say I would love to have somebody write in and say just enough, and then let me be, so that way I can do what I want to do all the rest of the time. But when I need you, I would like you to be there, and it's a hard balancing act. It's part of what makes relationship dynamics so fascinating. Yeah. Learning how much is too much and what's not enough.
Yeah. I think there's a huge attack on just anything traditional is bad. So like me, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I kind of can't not get praised for that, for just being a dad. Well, I feel like, if a woman's like, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, they get looked down upon. Like, why is it like celebrate it when I do it, but like if a woman wants to do it, it's like, you're being oppressed. How dare you? Why would you do such a thing and raise your children? What else I was gonna say? And then there's so in college, I hear constantly people are complaining about the male gaze, right? And I'll see these girls walking around school with their butt cheeks hanging out, and I'm like, do you really care about the male gaze that much? But at the same time, if I pointed my male gaze at a man, I would be celebrated for it. Not that I don't have any issues with how, do what
Yeah.
you want to do. I'm just saying, like, why is it, as a straight guy, why is it bad for me to, like, be physically attracted to a woman and, gaze upon her? But, like, if I look at a dude, now I'm living my true life and being my true self. I'm beautiful. I'm stunning. This is great. It just seems like I'm so tired of it.
It's antinatalism. That's all. It's just people hate. I mean, it started when Rebecca and I were born. We just decided we were all going to die because there were too many people, and everything since then has been geared toward anything that's non-reproductive and undermines family units and all that. And it's so transparent when you see it. You go, oh yeah, this is really the hot trend now because it would never produce a child, and that's really what it all boils down to.
Malthusian dynamics.
Malthusianism, yeah.
And in fact, it plays an important part actually in Watch of the Damned, and it's yes, she knows now. She knows. But that part where we separate male from female and they can't even talk to each other and they become dangerous to each other, both equally dangerous, because not only do they not understand each other, but they fear each other or even resent each other. And we have to get over the part where we feel like we're bad for wanting what we want, for wanting what people have wanted throughout the centuries. There's a reason that these things are reproduced. Women have had agency. I'm not saying they've had agency the way that we've always had it, but you can go back and you can look at, for instance, the book Anne of Green Gables to realize that she has complete agency. It's 1913 or whatever. And you can see these books. They had agency. They want these things. We don't just, to have Star Wars say, well, everything is rape, we're all, that's not true. Like sex. We actually see with men. And we need to stop the shame.
Yeah.
Don't kink shame.
I love the logic because of ancient wars were all product of rape. I'm like, okay, dude, like, all right.
Yeah. So I think we should just call it "Don't kink shame me" when we say that we love this thing. That's like, that's men and women together. Ooh, so bad.
That's a breeding kink.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that in Brave New World where like monogamy is considered a deviant kink, and and I feel like there's something like that in 1984 too.
Probably.
It's all supposed to be shared. It's
supposed to be fiction.
Oh yeah, Logan. You're right.
Yeah, really.
Don't build the Nexus Torment. Or the Torment Nexus.
No, and then they're going to go do it. Yeah. Yes, this is, like I said, it's a near future. And so much of what you guys are saying actually resonates throughout the series. And in fact, I think that little foreshadowing, Blake, please read the rest of the series so that way I can tell you I told you so. I think that portion of it actually is what has resonated the most with male readers, was the fact that the Watcher is still who he is. And yes, he does some things that some people consider toxic. Woo. I got news for you. Half the dudes in the world are going to do something that someone's going to consider toxic. Those same men are going to go out and save somebody's life, or they're going to build something with their hands, or they're going to make sure that there's actually food on the table, or they're going to do something, and then they're going to do something stupid that's going to hack somebody off. You know what? It's called being human. Nobody is going to do everything exactly the way somebody else wants. And you cannot have everything. And I don't know why we suddenly make it so bad that if a man says one thing that just seems a little bit paternalistic, or maybe he's just being a little bit too dang pushy or bossy, you know what you do? You just rear back up and you go, I'm going to do it my way, and I love you, and I will talk to you in a minute. Like that. And then you go ahead and you do what you're going to do, and then you fight about it later, but you get over it because both of you can kind of get along. And when we keep on pushing back on this thing that they can't be who they are, you're seeing a world where men have been told that they can't be who they are, that they're not allowed to rescue people or save people or do things. That's when chaos reigns and civilization breaks down. You just talked about firefighters. Okay, so I'm married to one. I used to be one, and I am married to a firefighter. Let me tell you, yes, hot, awesome, good job. Anything in the uniform work. Pretty much anybody that's got a hard hat, we just do that. But our coders and people too. Let me tell you right now, that man that walks in and just suddenly sits down at your computer and fixes it, hot. Okay, so yeah, you need something and that person steps up and they're like, that man steps up and he's like, I fixed it for you. And you're like, oh, you're so good. I just want to just
It's so nice to have a man around the house.
That's right. Yeah. Any woman that has ever fussed at me about, well, oh, this is just paternalistic and he's so toxic, I just whoop out whatever this thing is that you look at this firefighter calendar. You tell me you're not affected because it's like women kryptonite is either cops or firefighter. I don't know why. Military man, it doesn't matter. Just like I said, just any kind of uniform. It's a crazy thing. Not always, but it pretty much happens. And so it's a straw man that they throw out there to hide the fact that they don't want people talking to each other and they want us all to be ashamed of who we are. Get back to being happy with who you are, folks. We love each other. Men and women need each other. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. And it fits together. The rocks in his head fit the holes in hers. That's the way that works.
Amen. All right. Well, I got to go help put the kids to bed. Go do some fatherly stuff.
Hot. It'll be hot. Trust me.
Yeah. Yeah, but this was great. I appreciate you guys coming on. Like I said, last book I did by myself, and it was okay. But like, it's way better having people on, especially having the author of the book. That was really cool to get like all your insights and to answer our questions and kind of expand on what we were noticing. That was great. It was also really cool to learn a bunch of stuff about Texas. I've been there a few times when I was in the Navy. I went to Fort Worth a bunch because we have a training center down there. So I'm a fan of Texas. I am. Although you've kind of made it sound less appealing with alligators eating your cows and stuff and mites.
Animals. We haven't even gotten to the cow ants yet. We haven't gotten to them.
But thank you guys so much. Anyone who's watching right now or watching later, there's a link down in the description. So go over to Amazon and pick up Watcher of the Damned. I highly recommend it. The action, it's well paced. The scenery, the scenes are good. The relationship between Rose and Sal are amazing. It was a great book.
Thank you. Can I squeal here?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know I talked way too much. I am so sorry, guys.
That's all right.
Made me so excited I could talk all the day. Sarah, fantastic. Do you have any last things you want to say? Just
Nope.
Nope.
All righty.
Thumbs up.
you. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All the listeners and our viewers.
Yeah.
And thank you, Bruce.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, for putting it together.
Absolutely. See you guys around.
All right.
All right. Later.
If you follow up people,
huh?
let me know.
I will do.